What's up, everyone? It's Friday, March 5th. This is GameTrailers.com. Invisible Walls taking you into your weekend with style and class. Lots of big stuff happened this week in the gaming industry. We'll get to that in a little bit. On the show today, we have Miguel Lopez.
What's up, guys? I'm looking fresh and crisp with the new avatar. Hopefully.
Justin Spears on the show today.
Yo.
Quiet Storm.
Yo.
And we have Mike Damiani with a cane. What the hell do you have a cane for?
It's my master troll level up.
What do you
item.
use it for?
You don't want to know.
He pulls people off stage that are really thin.
When people come by when I'm trying to review games and they annoy me, I whack them over the head with this so I can get my work done faster.
And it's to poke all the dead bodies in your apartment,
And just
too,
to,
right?
yeah, and to clarify, this is I know what you said. I was going along with it. This is the cane from House. The flame cane makes me look awesome too.
It makes you look disabled.
Awesome.
That's part of the point too. Getting the reactions out of people is amazing.
And Ryan Stevens.
After this ordeal, I think I may actually be disabled.
You need a prop,
I'm not quite
Ryan.
sure what's going on.
You can borrow my cane.
You need a prop, maybe like a giant carrot or
You know how they have the
Pirate
arrows
hat.
that go through people's heads?
Yeah, that's good.
I was thinking it'd be really
Steve
cool
Martin arrow.
if they had one that was a gun and then like your brain's getting blown out on the other side. Would be pretty cool.
good for
Could sell
some
that at like
lulls,
Spencer's
yeah.
Gifts or something like
Oh,
that. Hot Topic.
Yeah, big week in the game industry. Lots to talk about, so let's get to it.
Oh, and just real quick, if you stay on to the end of the show, we'll tell you how to get into the Blur beta.
That's right. Let's
Neat.
get to it. All right, first we're going to talk about another game we have discussed a few times, but now that our review is up, we can be a little more candid about it, and that game is Battlefield Bad Company 2. Now, I reviewed this game for the site. I've played the hell out of the multiplayer, played through the campaign one in about a half times at this point.
And you played on all the systems, right?
I did. I ended up playing it on PC, PS3, and 360, so I actually got a cross-section of all of them. I played the PC version for probably the first couple hours. That was actually the version I played first. And then I went on and played the 360 and PS3 versions. I just got a brand new PC. I got a quad-core 2.5 gigahertz with a badass video card. I got a 5770 HD. So I got to try it out. To my disappointment, the game doesn't look that great on PC. It sucks. I was all excited. I'm like, all right, I'm going to crank all this up and see how it looks. Turn everything up to max, and it still only looks marginally better than the console versions. You can tell the game was built for the console first and then sort of ported over to the PC. Now, the obvious advantage you have with the PC version is the mouse and keyboard.
And dedicated servers.
Yes, and it made the game a lot easier playing it with the mouse and keyboard, let me tell you, versus playing it with a controller, even though the aim assist on the single player is pretty generous in the console version. Still, it was much easier to play with the mouse and keyboard. Campaign, it's better. It's better than the campaign they had in the first Bad Company. It's still, you can tell it's kind of, I mean, there are set-piece moments in it, but it still feels kind of just tacked together, and they borrowed a lot of ideas from other games, while along the way taking pot shots at some other games, which I found kind of ironic, considering a lot of it seems to be borrowed sort of concepts.
Like what? What kind of pot shots?
Oh, they make a comment in the game about soldiers with heartbeat sensors, which is like a dig on Call of Duty.
Wasn't it pussies with heartbeat sensors?
Right, yeah. Which I'm all for. I think that's really cool and really funny, and I love inside jokes like that. I also love the one achievement, which is a Link to the Past, which is a nod to Zelda. There's some cool stuff in there, but the campaign overall, it feels like something that you've played before. It feels like a game that you've played before. It was still good and enjoyable.
I thought the AI in the campaign is pretty decent. I thought, or in
Which
terms
AI?
of the enemies like actively going after you and kicking your ass and blowing a hole in whatever is between
I would
them and you.
definitely agree with that.
It's pretty tough. I was surprised by how often I was
It's
dying.
not
in
an
the
easy
early
game at
campaign.
all. You can't run out into the open or you'll get killed quickly, and you can't really hide either because they'll blow up the building that you're standing behind or standing in. So it was challenging. It's one of those games where you kind of have to memorize where the enemies are, because a lot of times
Well, they do have those set points where you cross it and then guys will come from a specific place,
and it's
but-
the same spots every time. And the problem is sometimes they'll hide someone back in a nook or whatever, and you'll think you have cleared out the area, and you'll walk past that nook, and he'll shoot you in the back. So you have to memorize where all those sort of enemy placements are so that you're prepared for it. Now, obviously, most people aren't going to play this for the campaign. The campaign was fun, and I played through it. I didn't feel like it was a grind or anything like that. It was just very derivative. Obviously, the multiplayer is a big draw for this game. I think a lot of people that may be coming off of some other shooters there's gonna be an adjustment period. There's no aim assist, as I mentioned in the review, so you have to be really good with the sticks to get kills in it, and I appreciate that, honestly. Like, I don't have any problem with them taking out the aim assist. It really makes your score reflect your skills. But the other thing I really love about the multiplayer is that they spread out the points for leveling up. So in a lot of games, it's like, how many kills did you get? That's how many points you get. In this game, if you're not so good with the targeting without the auto assist, you can take up so many different roles and actually, if you really get good at those roles, you can get more points than the guys who just go out and use assault to try to kill a lot of people.
Do they feed your points? Like, if you assist someone and then they kill someone, do you get like a percentage of that?
Even if you're riding,
you get points for almost everything. Really.
Everything. Even if you're riding in a vehicle and the guy who's piloting the vehicle kills 50 people, you get points for those kills. In fact,
Your
some of
weight
the
was
best
part of
games
that,
I
yeah.
had was when I would just ride in a tank with somebody who was really good at it, and they'd kill like 15 or 20 people. You couple that with some support stuff that you do and the kills that you earn on your own, and you can build up points pretty quickly. The leveling up is a little slow at first. A lot of shooters that have sort of the leveling system, the first few levels you get really easily, like 2 matches, and you're at level 2. It takes a few matches, one, because you're learning, so you don't really understand how to get the points yet, and 2, they just don't dole out the points like they do, and they've set the sort of the benchmarks for each level a little higher than a lot of other shooters.
Does the destructibility actually factor in a lot?
Oh, it's huge. Huge in the single player and in the multiplayer. It's huge.
Was the map from the demo? Is that the best map in the
No,
game?
no, I would definitely not. My favorite map is.
I hate when they do that, because then everyone's just playing the same map from the demo.
No. In fact, it seemed to me that most people were straying away from that map at first because they had played it so much. Like Panama Canal is my favorite map in the game. I feel like it has the most diversity as far as using the vehicles, and you can be effective no matter what you want to do. So, I guess my one complaint with the multiplayer is that it takes way too many bullets to drop somebody. So it's fine when you're in one-on-one fights. Obviously, the guy who pumps the other guy with the most lead gets the kill. But when you're trying to kill 2 or 3 people at once, it's pretty much impossible, because you have to almost empty a whole clip to kill someone. So you empty that clip, you sight up the next guy, you maybe get a few rounds into him, and then your clip runs out and you got to change, and then you die. The way that you can remedy this, and the way I play the game, is on hardcore mode. I started playing on the regular mode. Now the last couple of nights I've really switched over to hardcore. It's much more realistic. You can actually shoot someone with a 3 or 4 round burst and kill them, which is the way it should be. In fact, 1 bullet from an assault rifle is normally enough to kill somebody.
It's the way God intended.
So I've enjoyed it a lot more now that it actually is a little more realistic, is a little more reliant on skill. You can actually take down multiple enemies in a skirmish without having to run away and hide and reload. So I would definitely recommend to those of you out there who want a more realistic experience to play it on hardcore. All right, so by now, as you guys have all seen, our review for Final Fantasy XIII went up today. I'm sure there's some weeping fanboys out there somewhere who all thought it would get a 10 after how many years of development? 4 years of development?
Oh, 4 years that we've known about it.
Right.
It's got to be
So
long.
how much
They started
were you
development
playing?
back on PS2. That's going to be like
when
6
did
years.
Final Fantasy X finish?
That came out in 2001.
So it's probably been working on that since 2001.
More than 4 years. More than 4 years.
So, not even a 9. I think, well, actually, Final Fantasy 12.
It's a good score. Above 8.
It is a good score.
It is a good
First
score,
of all,
and
first of all, it is
Almost
a good
8
score.
is also a good score.
Let's establish that anything above an 8 is a great score.
You can't be priming the fanboys for yet another attack. You know what I'm saying?
Well, the last Final Fantasy 12, we were pretty rough on, and it seemed kind of split. A lot of the people who were kind of blind fans of the series were angry over it. But then the more serious players who've been playing it throughout all the years agreed with us on it and said, wow, you guys had the guts to call it out and sort of call a spade a spade. So here we are. This game's better than Final Fantasy 12. But what were sort of some of your big issues with it that knocked it down from that sort of 9 level?
Well, I don't know. Let me start by saying that when, leading up to us getting the review version, there was frankly, a lot of backlash toward it from people who played the Japanese. And
We're looking at you, Mike Damiani.
Such a bad troll, Mark.
But, frankly, going into it, like, I was expecting it to feel less like a Final Fantasy game than it actually did,
Well, it has a little hand.
Right, yeah, it's got the cursor,
Sometimes
man.
that was the only thing that clued me in that you were playing Final Fantasy. That was seeing that little white gloved hand for
Right.
the menus.
So are you saying it still feels like a Final Fantasy game?
Absolutely, yeah. A whole lot of the criticism that it's been getting is people saying that it doesn't give you the sort of level of freedom that you'd expect from this kind of game. But I would argue that in Final Fantasy games especially, like that freedom is kind of an illusion. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Definitely. I mean, you play a lot of Western RPGs too.
Yeah.
I think you'd agree with me. And Damiani, you play a lot of JRPGs.
Yeah.
JRPGs are, by their nature, very linear.
They're pretty
compared
linear.
to, compared to the
Yeah.
Western tradition.
Yeah,
I mean, you
just
still have the overworld map and stuff like that, but it's very A to B to C.
right. And the variation that you do get usually isn't that huge. Like if you're in a dungeon, there'll be a branching path that'll take you down to a secret piece of treasure. The only difference in this game is that the branching paths are much shorter. You know what I mean? The game is kind of more to the point, and it feels like it's propelling you toward the cutscenes. It's kind of there's that feeling of it being filler that's leading you to the big payoff, which is the cutscenes, which is getting to see.
But I guess my question is, like, we've all...
But no, wait, don't get me wrong though. Like
That doesn't sound fun to me at all.
Tasty filler.
the
It's like
thing
cotton
is,
candy. Yum, yum, yum.
again, this is exactly the format that these games have followed for a long time, and the stuff you do during those filler moments.
Well, it's kind of like...
It's combat, and it's actually fun. Like the combat system in this game is really cool.
So you really like it.
I do, yeah. I thought it was excellent. I think on the one hand, it kind of you kind of feel shortchanged because you're not determining every single action your characters are making, but they replace that by giving you a lot of level over the high level strategy, and that in effect is the same thing because it still leads to those moments where you feel like you made the right command at the right time to survive by the skin of your teeth. There are a lot of really hard battles in that game.
That's
And
good.
You look like you want to say something, Mike.
Yeah. No, I just want to go back to you saying how in JRPGs, it's an illusion of your choice that it's a branching path. But I honestly think that in 13, it's not necessarily that it's so like
Streamlined?
not streamlined. It's more that there's nothing else to do other than just go forward and keep battling. They didn't really throw a lot of like the side quests and stuff that you really expect in like a Final Fantasy
So
game.
there's no Zodiac Spear?
They do throw in basically they throw in a load of side quests at the end, right? Like,
But that's at the end, and it's not what I don't know what you mean by load, but it's just the monster quest things where you go back to that one
right?
previous
You're
zone.
not getting cutscenes after completion and all that stuff. But it sort of loads those in the back, and it's kind of. I mean,
Yeah.
I read that as their way of saying, look, we gave you what you wanted. Here's you endured this crazy story we tried to tell you, and here is this big ass field with these enormous monsters that will give you crazy loot and experience. Now go at it.
How is the story, Miguel? Because that's sort of the one thing that's been sort of floating out in the wind because we played it in Japanese initially.
Right.
Ultimately, how does it all shake down with the voice acting and everything?
The world and the story, it's kind of cool, but what kills it for me is the voice acting. It's like it's what you'd expect, like super
Well, it's
mellow.
a dialogue too, right? I mean, it's...
Well, yesterday it was funny. You were playing and you had headphones on, and I kind of walked up behind you and started watching it, and I started ad-libbing in my own sort of what I thought they were saying, and you had actually taken one of the sides off of your headphones, and what did you say to me? You said,
"Are you listening?"
Could you hear what they were saying? I basically ad-libbed exactly what they were. They're the type of things that they were saying.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. It's that kind of like melodramatic soap opera. Cool things do happen to the characters, and but I want to go back to the notion of freedom in these games. You do get a fair amount of freedom in terms of how you develop your characters and what items you upgrade, and that's if you've played and liked any Final Fantasy game from the regular ones to like Final Fantasy Tactics, you will see a lot of that stuff, especially once it fully opens up. The game doesn't, like, the systems don't open up until fairly late. It's all sort of like gradual,
Well, they kind of, I mean, you pretty much hit a certain point, and they're like, okay, we think you're ready for this mechanic.
right.
Now
And
you can start using
the thing
that.
is, the game is so drawn out that
I kind of hate that though.
me too. Yeah. I mean, I
think 12 had the same problem where you have the gambit system, which is really, you can do a lot with it. And then they only give you the very basic gambits first. Like, yeah, well, do this, use your fight, heal, fight through 40 hours of gameplay, and then
Right.
maybe we'll give you some interesting
Yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, the end result is that I only really started having fun until I didn't start having fun in combat until like 15 hours in. Once you know, the whole system's available to you and you're like motivated to do all the crazy class switching, you know?
That's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
15 hours.
Once you finally got to all
called
those
value.
challenging
It's called
battles.
value,
right?
Shane.
Yeah. I mean, the challenging battles are crazy, you know? Like, you feel that you're surviving, you know, on the merit of every action you make, you know what I mean? If you make one wrong decision, you get wiped out and you got to start over. And that's, you know,
But you start
Final
over.
Fantasy.
You start over not at a save point though, right? You start over at the battle you were at.
right before the fight.
Yeah, the game sounds streamlined.
It is. It absolutely is, you know?
I still would prefer, though. I know we said at the end it has that stuff, but most every other Final Fantasy game, you could stop at certain points at almost any point in the game and go do something else.
Right.
You
And
can
this
kind of
game-
chill out, right?
Yeah,
You can
in this game you can't even
take
go
a break.
back to like the previous area you came from. Just look around. It's just too guided and directed.
So,
I think.
is
are
it-
there,
is
is there like
majority
any
correct?
hidden items, or are there any hidden party members or anything like that?
Hidden is a
None of
strong
that,
word,
no.
I think, in this game. It's like you can see a little path and you can choose not to walk down it, but you know,
Now,
I think it's
Miguel,
pretty obvious anytime you can get a treasure or anything.
Dragon Age, Mass Effect 2 scored both those well higher than Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah. I don't
Did you
know.
enjoy both those games a lot more than this game?
Yeah, I'm just more into that kind of RPG.
Well, those are kind of, well, not so much with Dragon Age, but Mass Effect is a different kind of RPG.
Right.
It's something that we haven't played to death. Do you feel that Final Fantasy 13 is just maybe a little too familiar?
I don't know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with familiar, and I would say that Mass Effect is also kind of familiar. Like, it's a shooter, but it's still the same BioWare format where, you know, you got to talk to your party members a billion times, and
Sleep with them.
Right, but you
Yeah.
have like the
have
branching
to.
conversation paths
Right.
and things like that. I mean, there's really nothing like that in Final Fantasy 13, right?
no, yeah, you're just sitting and listening. You know, that the story. I mean, Final Fantasy is kind of on the strength of its format. It's better for telling a story than a game like Mass Effect is, because you could totally ignore the story for a large portion. But you know, I don't know.
That's a good thing.
I think it's a good
It's
thing.
kind of important in an RPG to know what's going on with the story and to care.
I think freedom to do whatever you want is more important than to like go around and get loot and power up your characters and see cool stuff. You know, I don't know. That's just my preference when it comes to those games.
Here's the biggest question. Obviously, Final Fantasy has one of the largest fan bases in the entire industry. Do you think they are going to be happy with this game?
You know, knowing the Final Fantasy fans I know, they'll probably have a knee-jerk reaction that, you know, may not be super positive. But I
So you think the fans at first may be the most vocal?
I think so, yeah. I mean, you know, who knows, right? Like, some of them are going to be incensed that this game isn't rating crazy high, but
21 out of 20?
yeah. But, you know, I think that more honest reaction would be like, wow, this is something totally different. And depending on how these people are, like, they might just freak the out, you know?
Here's my big question: is this going to be the simplest Final Fantasy to write an FAQ for?
Oh, yeah,
Go
absolutely.
forward.
Yeah.
Press X.
You know,
Right.
Haven't you seen those maps yet of people who've like drawn it all out? It's just literally like one long
A straight line.
that's going.
they'll get a lot of mileage giving you boss strategies, though, because those are really variable and really cool. You know, you do get the impression, even after you beat one, that there are different ways you could have done
So
it.
they're not puzzles with like one solution. You can beat them your own way.
But at the same
I think
time,
so.
don't you also need to balance your party based on the fight you're getting into?
So is it worth everyone to play, do you think? Everyone should give it a whirl?
I think so. I mean, I think the combat system is excellent. It's, you know, challenging, keeps you on your toes, and at least, you know, by my reckoning, that's probably the most important thing about an RPG is you know, the actual tactical mechanics. You know, you want to look at pretty characters, man. This has it there. You know, like the models look insane. Like, you know,
Way better than Risen.
oh yeah, a little bit though. A little bit. I don't know, man. Like even though they're saying this retarded stuff, they're so expressive, and it kind of sells you on their humanity, which, you know, which says a lot, given that what they're saying is really hard to swallow a lot of the time. You know.
The only place this thing is taking us is where these boys tell it to.
Really? That is a Grand Pulse ship.
Really? Leave it to me.
Either way, we're on borrowed time, so we might as well go. We get lucky, maybe we'll even turn up some way to get rid of these goofy tattoos.
Yeah.
But there's no way to do that. You never know. Maybe we just didn't think to look for one.
All right, so last week we talked about the Nintendo Media Summit. The guy who actually went to the event was not here at the time, but he is now. And that guy's Mike Damiani. He's here to deliver us the hands-on impression of Metroid. And Super Mario Galaxy 2. So first we want to talk about Metroid, because we've been hearing all this stuff about how, it's like a 2D game mixed with 3D, and you sort of spin the controller and point at the screen to go into first-person view. How does that work? And please tell me it works well.
Well, I will tell you that it works. How well it actually
No.
works is we needed more time. We basically only got about 20, 30 minutes with the demo. We got to play the opening moments of the game, showed us a little bit of the control scheme where it I know they've been saying it's 2D for that viewpoint, but it actually controls more like those old arcade brawlers where you can move up and down, left and right. So it's more like
So you can move into the
that-
picture?
It's
more-
like Devil May Cry fixed camera.
Yeah, it's
right?
it's fixed camera. It's more that's where the Team Ninja side is coming in, and that part plays pretty well. I mean, you hold the controller like an NES controller, and you just play it like old school, like Super Metroid. It feels like that.
How's the combat?
The combat, it's a little weird at first because there's no like lock on naturally. I'm sorry, there's no manual lock on. Samus locks on naturally by facing the enemy, and then she'll kind of look at them and target them. So it took a little while because you can't just like spam the fire button when you're facing enemies because you'll just shoot around, like away from them. You have to give it some time. But other than that, it really does feel like playing like an old Metroid game. It
Is
feels
there
like
a
the old
lot of
2D.
hand-to-hand that you would expect from
Now
a Team
that
Ninja game?
Now that was interesting because there wasn't as much as I thought, and maybe it's just because it was that area, and maybe she hadn't unlocked some new abilities yet. The only melee that I saw was the ability to, when enemies attacked you, you could counter them with kind of like a parry throw them off and shoot, basically. But there was no way I saw to initiate melee combat, so that was a little interesting.
How does the whole thing work that they showed in the one trailer where she like puts the gun up to their head, like sort of horse collars and puts the gun to their head and then pulls the trigger?
That one was more of a scripted scene during we didn't see that part, but that boss battle, that long tentacle one with you shoot ice at, there are parts where you trigger it through like not in a quick time event, but in action you do triggers that sequence to happen. So you had a bunch of soldiers fighting with you at that part. They said like, we're gonna freeze the arm, then you use a missile and destroy it, and then once you fired the missile, like it'd react and you'd like jump on it and do like the headshot type thing.
Now, did you just say that there's a bunch of soldiers with you?
Yes.
Now, how does that work? Because Metroid, she works solo.
It's always about
they
being
up
alone.
with
It's always
corruption,
about
though.
being alone, but this isn't your old Metroid. Basically, the game starts off where you investigate a distress signal on an abandoned space station.
Haven't heard that one before.
And when you arrive, you find a group of soldiers there.
So
And
are they turning this to
Remember
Babylon
me?
5?
I guess.
they're putting more story emphasis on this.
That's
and,
ridiculous. I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, Metroid Prime 3 had the soldiers, but they didn't actually
This-
go out
Even
on missions. with
even Echoes had the soldiers right at the very beginning.
This actually affects like the gameplay experience and not just story experience anymore. So they're your old, basically your old crew that you used to be a part of when you were back in the Galactic Federation. So this is
Back
your
in the
old,
day.
yeah, back in the day, and this is their old team. And basically,
me?
yeah, that guy's in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, now
yeah.
you actually remember who he is, just to give you a flashback. But basically, you're given permission to tag along with them because Samus has these abilities that they don't have with their standard tactical gear. And that first boss battle you see, they're actually giving you support from the mech. You have to
yeah,
wait.
when you said that, red flags went off.
And from the
Wait a minute.
and that's the only part we got to see where they actually helped you out. But from the interview we conducted, they basically said there'll be other parts because they're on the station with you. There will probably be other parts where you either team up with them or they aid you in some kind of battle, which we have yet to see. But you're still only primarily controlling Samus. So if you're worried about you could do co-op play or something like that, it's strictly just controlling Samus.
My big question is, what is the format of the game like? Does it seem like it's going to be a kind of linear level to level kind of thing?
I think it's going to be more linear than before, but I still think even from what we played, there was still some backtracking and there'd be like a door you couldn't open yet. You go do something, come back. But once you got past this like first initial
But it's a 2D map, right?
it's
not like the crazy wireframe thing you got with
the
the Prime
wireframe
games.
anymore. Yes,
Thank
that's what you're talking
God.
about. But basically, the game's meat starts when you beat the first boss, and then the commanding officer, your former commanding officer, starts giving you like objectives to tackle. Like the first one's go restore power to like the generator room.
I'm sure she loses all her weapons, as she always does. How does that happen this time?
Drop them.
Yeah, they have this.
Spoilers!
Oh man, this is one of the most ridiculous explanations. But basically, Samus has all of her abilities, but she's not authorized to use certain abilities, such as like the power bomb.
All right, let's move on to Mario.
Mario
Mario
is
Galaxy
still
2.
awesome.
Yeah.
Still awesome.
Any new power-ups you got to fiddle around with?
We got this is the first time I believe we got to play as Yoshi, and they showed off a few of the fruit powers that he had.
I think Yoshi's overrated. People always get excited.
You don't like-
Yoshi's
you don't
in
like
the
fruit
game. I'm like,
powers?
I don't give a about Yoshi.
It's-
I would use him to high jump to and then let him fall in a
dump
hole.
his ass.
You know?
Thanks.
his using his tongue, I think, is the best part about it, because you can gobble up enemies but shoot them out as projectiles. Whereas before in the 2D games, you just shot them forward. This one, you actually use the pointer to aim, and you can fire it at specific targets. Like there's an entire boss battle that revolved around that, and it was different enough, and it was fun. I think people will find that enjoyable. The rest of it plays just like Galaxy, but instead there are new power-ups. The ones we saw were with Yoshi, or this kind of like spicy fruit that made him dash, so he could go against gravity on sideways, upside down. And then that blimp, the blue fruit that made him like blow up, and he could glide for a little while. Reminded me of, I know it's a fruit from a previous game, but it actually reminded me more of like Super Mario World when Mario inflated and you had to like hover up and keep hitting those.
What is the genus of the fruit from the previous game, dude?
What? No.
It seems like something you would know, man.
I don't remember that. As for Mario
It's
himself,
happy fruit.
they didn't actually show off new
sure.
power-ups for Mario himself. Most of it was just
mostly Yoshi.
straightforward. It was more about playing with Yoshi, getting to know how Yoshi played in his power-ups.
After playing it, are you more excited for it or less excited for it?
I think I'm just as excited. Maybe just a tad bit more, because I got to play Yoshi, and it was really fun playing as him.
It's good to hear.
That was the one point I was worried about, but definitely looking forward to it.
All right, so Justin, you just got back from Japan. I think you flew for 2 days and was there for about 10 minutes. And why were you there?
Well, I was there for a little longer than 10 minutes, but I was there during my limited time to see Vanquish, which is Shinji Mikami's new game, which is a shooter.
Which we just debuted exclusively not long ago. Now, the trailer that we had didn't show much of the game, so you probably need to start at base zero and explain to everybody what it is.
Yeah, I guess I could do that. Unfortunately, I don't think we have any footage to show at this point, so I'll just try to... You have to use your
Paint
imagination.
a picture with words.
Yeah, paint a picture with words. So, it's
You could do charades.
It's a shooter. I mean, it's a sci-fi military themed shooter. It seems to take place on like a colony somewhere, not Earth, and your
Wait,
enemies.
it's not Earth.
I believe that
Because the
it's
whole
not Earth.
trailer was San Francisco getting blown up.
Yeah, it doesn't look like San Francisco when you're shooting dudes. So I think this is on some. I'm sure it's large scale space.
So basically what
conflict.
happened, what I can gather, is aliens attacked San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean the
and
trailer.
you-
They didn't tell any more about the story other than they showed the trailer and you looked at Hillary Clinton again. Saying she's gonna some aliens, and they're actually all the enemies are robots. So that's kind of interesting. But the good thing is they explode. So the game is a shooter. You shoot a lot of robots.
Third or first person?
It's a third person shooter. It's kind of, everything's inevitably compared to Gears these days. It does have a cover system. It does look a little Gears like. I think they have a little bit of the Lost Planet aiming style where it doesn't, it's not moving the entire screen whenever you're aiming around, but pretty fast paced. That thing on the back of your, it seems like you have kind of a boost mechanic. So the dude actually slides on his knees and he has like thigh jets. And so you kind of like, slalom ski like between obstacles and stuff. You can boost into a dude and then like flip kick off of him. You can do a straight up melee where you punch a dude and like just fly way out of the way. They also have a slow motion mechanic in there.
So what are you inserting power-ups into that module in his back? Is that how it works?
I think it's just like you have an innate ability to just boost, and you can use it to evade people. You can kind of like really get out of the way quickly, boost to cover quickly, boost to a guy quickly, and then kick flip off of him and go into slow motion, and then shoot him with a shotgun or something. So
do you have to initiate the slow motion, or does it do it automatically?
They didn't explain how it works, but I think it's something that you trigger, and I'm sure I'm sure you can. There's a big skill component there.
Now, I am completely 100% jealous of you because you interviewed somebody that in all my years in this industry I've never had the honor of interviewing. You interviewed Shinji Mikami, but it wasn't maybe my dreams were just that, in dreams.
Yeah, well, they said he hadn't done interviews in 4 years, and I don't think he wanted to do interviews this time either.
He has laryngitis.
I mean,
His dog died.
He's definitely a cool and talented guy, but I would have liked to get a little more out of the interview. It was back to back. We had like 10 minutes total, so kind of challenging. He said a few things about the game, but I'm trying to think of some more interesting things I could.
Would you say the in-game visuals, did they look similar to the stuff we saw in the trailer?
They look really good. The game looks like it's got to be really, really advanced stage. Oh yeah, well, one thing about it, the overall feel of the game, it kind of has an almost arcade level of exaggerated feedback. Like, to me, it almost looked like a super cool Dreamcast game, like Dreamcast 2 launch title or something, just because like you hit a guy with a melee and it's boom, he flies way far back. Anytime you kill an enemy, whether you're shooting them or flip kicking off them, they do a big explosion, like parts everywhere. It damages the guys that are next to it. And just everything feels really, big and kind of exaggerated,
What kind of guns?
So, alien weaponry?
We have assault rifles, shotguns,
okay.
Blah, 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 that kind of thing.
So it's real world weapons. You don't use like the aliens' weapons, at least in what you saw.
At one point, he jumped in a kind of a mech and then shot some phaser laser disruptor cannons or whatever at the dudes, but that part didn't look that great.
These days when I play a shooter, I pay a lot of attention to how the different enemy classes interact in order to create like a cool firefight.
I didn't see too many. I only saw the whole thing once through, right? So it's hard to see how dynamic it is and how people would behave differently. But he said during the presentation that they're putting a lot of work into the AI, and both your ally AI and the enemy AI should have should be pretty high level stuff, and they should be doing different things and reacting in different ways. Yeah, so I did fight a boss that's very kind of Contra-like, because the boss had like glowing cores everywhere and actually transformed in real time and did the kind of Macross missile thing where he shot like 200 missiles at you, and that looked pretty impressive. And at some point there was a quick time event where you're rotating the stick, so it was kind of weird to see a quick time. Basically he's shooting like huge missiles or something up, and you're grabbing it and then like kind of turning it around and stuffing it back in the hole.
Mikami did make Resident Evil 4. That game, I thought, used QuickTime events to almost perfection.
But he also opened the floodgates for everyone else.
He sure did.
The hour is nigh, and the wrath of God shall strike men down. I'm preparing for the end of the world.
All right, a couple big stories broke over the last couple days. Broke being the operative word with the PlayStation 3. Apparently everybody went to turn on their systems this week, and they just wouldn't work.
Unless you had a Slim.
And why was that different, I wonder?
They'd probably fix the bug.
Wasn't it? I mean, I'm kind of a couple days behind. Like, after I couldn't play Final Fantasy this weekend for review, I got over it once it was fixed, but I thought it was something to do with the hardware, kind of like a Y2K kind of thing, where the machine was.
Yeah, it had to do with like leap year and stuff. I mean, it's
all
all
clocks.
It was like a disconnect between the software thought it was one day and then the hardware thought it was another.
What's just so weird about this is how it unbricked itself without
doing anything.
After the day passed, right?
Did Sony say that they fixed it, or they just say, okay, turn your system on now and it's okay?
Well,
I'm sure they took credit somehow.
Our debug fixed itself.
They were saying
they all did.
And they were saying at 3:30, which doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Whatever. It's just bizarre. So much egg on their face, though.
Well, it's funny that they built a system that's probably one of the most technologically advanced pieces of electronics in the history of the world, but they couldn't get the clock to work.
They probably needed another core.
And right now is when we need Marcus here to call Bobby Kotick what is that word he uses? A git or a?
I think those are very different words.
Yeah, you went from 1 to 1,000 there.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what git means, but I know he would probably be using that word right now if he were here. So basically what happened is Infinity Ward, two of the heads of the studio, were escorted out of the studio yesterday. The remaining members of Infinity Ward are kind of in a holding pattern, wondering what the hell's going on. The initial rumors coming out of the whole situation was that they were somehow talking to a competitor. I'm not going to say what that competitor might be because it's still conjecture right now. I have not been able to confirm the story, but it looks like a couple of the guys there were maybe talking to another publisher about working on some other projects. Activision caught wind of it, and thus the storm ensued.
I haven't even heard that rumor. I mean, I've heard profit sharing. I've heard they've been asked to do another Modern Warfare when they wanted to do something else. I heard they didn't like Sledgehammer and Treyarch. Well, we know they don't like Treyarch working on Call of Duty games.
Right.
I heard they wanted, again, all rumors. I heard Activision wants to charge $5 a month for Call of Duty multiplayer,
which we talked about
they
before.
were against that. So.
I mean, it would be interesting if it was the one that you suggested there, because that's how Modern Warfare got started, where those two guys in Infinity Ward were working. They were supposed to be working on a regular World War II version of Call of Duty, and then they made Modern Warfare for like was a year or something. They hid it under Activision, then they showed it to them, and wasn't it Activision didn't actually believe in it at first, I believe, and then
They believe in it now.
and then when they showed now they believe in it, but. I mean, a lot of rumors. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Wasn't they also saying the press release that, or something I read said that
The SEC
they were waiting to hear what their next project was going to be, and when they were told, that's when the two heads were gone. So,
Well, I think at this point, Activision maybe want to cut Infinity Ward a little slack. I mean, they made them, what, $1 billion in the last 6 months?
Isn't it in their best interest to let that team do whatever the heck it wants?
I believe that wholeheartedly. There's no doubt about it. But all they're looking at is the money. But
Right.
they don't realize the pedigree of that team is what made people buy Modern Warfare in the first place.
You think it's a miscalculation on Activision's part? Like maybe they think that the Call of Duty name is what's important. Who cares who makes it? As long as we got this IP, we could put out 1 million games that are going to do just as well.
Activision can't seem to give Infinity Ward freedom. You don't want to burn people out. I mean, that's what it comes down to. You want them to remain creative and invigorated. If you're putting their nose to the grindstone and saying, you're going to do this, what are they going to do? They're going to rebel. I just think Activision is handling the situation probably not as good
But
as
this
it
is how
could.
Activision does stuff. Think about Brutal Legend. I mean, they just killed that fan King's Quest game that was going out.
Yeah.
They're the first third party, and they are the king of the third parties. They're just.
But they've also got to
destroyers.
realize at this point, what do they have? I mean, Guitar Hero's slumping.
they want Call of Duty. They want what Blizzard does with their products. They want the Activision wants to handle Call of Duty like how Blizzard
Right.
handles things.
That's like Scrooge McDuck looking at the money
Yeah.
bin and being like, I want another one of these right next to it.
It's the money, and that's what they need. All these teams to push one out. Like,
But
so
see,
often.
it works with World of Warcraft because it already has that critical mass, that huge user base, and very little competition, in all honesty. Right now, tons of people that were playing Modern Warfare are jumping over to play Battlefield Bad Company 2.
Well-
and after that, there's going to be something else that comes along that people jump onto. But right now, I think Activision is walking a very thin line. I mean, a lot of their franchises are... Tony Hawk is obviously in the tank. A lot of the franchises they built their cachet of money on are going away. They need to come up with new IPs. So why not let someone like an Infinity Ward work on a new IP for you?
My last statement on this is that I got to assume that fools like Bobby Kotick are smarter than me. That they know how to make money in games more than I do. Makes me think that we don't know the full story.
Well, we never do.
Yeah.
But that's the fun of this show, right?
Right.
Gentlemen, good work on taking the town. Private Allen, you'll be taking orders from me from now on. I'll brief you on the chopper. Let's go.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 97. We do have some important stuff to get to before we say goodbye. Ryan, take it away.
If you want to get onto the Blur beta,
That would be a racing
beta
game
blockers.
from our friends at Activision.
in the UK. On your Game Trailers account, send a private message to Beta King. That's one word, and we'll put up some text here. The subject is just the word bizarre, and we're giving out hundreds of these, and we'll send it to you right away this Friday. But do note, the beta doesn't actually go live until the 8th.
Do they have to
These
spell
are,
bizarre
360s.
correctly?
I believe so. And we'll
Can
put
you
that up
spell
correct.
bizarre, Ryan?
No.
Skill testing question.
Is there a hyphen in there?
Look on the screen, take your iPod out of your pocket, and have a peek. Also, we've seen some comments
Or your Zune.
recently. Or your Zune. The 5 of you that have a
I heard the
Zune.
Zune had a leap year bug too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hilarious.
Our God of War 3 review coming up on the 8th next week, so make sure you check that out. Should be good to go. We'll be very careful about the spoilers. You know how you people are. We'll try to keep it as tame as possible. And also, we would like to thank Mike Pulano, who supplied Miguel Lopez with his caricature. Thank you. We'll be using that for the next several weeks. And Miguel's smiling right now ear to ear. He's glad to not have to be represented by a Cuban baseball player from 1922 anymore.
Yeah, that's fat. Thank you, man. We gotta pay you for it. You get a beta key.
No.
We'll pay you with
That's
a beta
the funniest
key.
joke ever.
Yeah, we'll give him a Blur beta key. But thank you, Mike. We really appreciate that. And guys, if you ever work on stuff like that, and you want to send it in. If we like it, we'll definitely run it in the show. So everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you on the other side with our God of War 3 review. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We love you guys. Invisible Walls is up and out.